Welcome to our picks for Week 13 in the Canadian Football League. I'm John Hodge, joined as always by JC Abbott. Cheese, how is it going today?
It's going great, Hodge. I'm ready to put out another group of certified winners. As we know, neither of us are ever wrong, and you must take everything we say as gospel.
There you go. And hey, I'm riding high this week. I went 4-0 straight up last week. We are now tied for the season at 33-13 straight up. Against the spread, we both went 2-2 last week. Not a bad week, but not a good week. Against the spread, you are now 27-19. I'm 26-20. So I'm one game away from catching you there, just like I did for straight up. So I'm excited to see if this is the magic week.
I'm not satisfied with those results, Hodge. I mean, I had a big, sizable lead on you straight up, and I've squandered it. I've let it all slip away like sand through my fingertips. I will
That's
lose
what you
much
get
sleep over this.
for picking the Red Blacks.
That is true. I picked them 3 straight weeks. I'm so stupid. Now, without any further ado, let's get into the games. The Montreal Alouettes will visit the Winnipeg Blue Bombers on Friday night, where the Blue and Gold are 5.5-point home underdogs. These teams last met in the 2025 East semifinal, where Winnipeg erased a 22-point deficit to lead in the second half before ultimately falling 42-33 at Percival Molson Stadium. The Alouettes have made no changes to their starting lineup this week, while Dietrich Nichols will be a game-time decision for the Blue Bombers. Will Montreal improve to 10-1, or can the Blue Bombers pull off the upset?
I don't think the Bombers can. No. I mean, this team had an incredible first half last week at Edmonton and then was absolutely terrible in the second half. They had 19 net yards of offense in the second half. Defensively, they just could not get a stop. Some really sloppy tackling, particularly in the last couple minutes of that one, to lose in walk-off fashion. And look, there's no shame in losing to Edmonton, especially in Edmonton. The Elks are the top team in the West Division, and they're number 2 on our power rankings for a reason. That said, I thought the way that that team lost was unpalatable, and I'm not sure that this team really understands where it is. You have Tommy Condell bragging about 15-plus yard passes to the media, and then his team is ranked 6th in that regard. And they're dead last in completions of 30-plus yards. By the way, the Alouettes are first. Winnipeg is 10 on the year. The Alouettes have 24, and Condell is out here talking about how, well, opposing defenses are taking, those looks away. Well, you don't think opposing defenses are playing high shell against the Alouettes, and Davis Alexander's going out there, and he's punching holes in the shell, going, no, I'm finding Tyler Snead. I'm finding Tyson Philpott. We're going to push the ball down the field. And then he turns late in the game, hands it to Travis Tice, and they run the ball down the opposition's throat. So to me, the Alouettes are in a league of their own right now. They're in a tier unto themselves. They're 9-1. I see them improving to 10-1. I don't think this is going to be an absolute beatdown in Princess Auto Stadium. I think this is going to be a relatively competitive game, but I do see the Alouettes winning this one, and I do see them covering that 5.5-point spread.
I do as well, Hodge, on both counts, because to me, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers may be the one team in the CFL that you can point to and say, actually, I think this team is worse than their record. A lot of times during the season, we talk about teams where the record is deceptive the other way. Oh, they got away with a few here. They maybe shouldn't have gotten as many wins as they did. This team is not as dominant as their record would suggest. Well, I think the reverse is true with the Bombers. I think they've escaped from a few lucky circumstances. I think this is a team with a lot of fatal flaws. And to your point earlier, it seems like their offensive coordinator doesn't really even understand what's going on because he doesn't know the numbers about his own offense. The Montreal Alouettes are the complete reverse of that. I think they are full 100% value for that record that they've got right now. They've been dominant this season. That deep passing attack, I think, can really exploit elements in the Winnipeg secondary. I know Dietrich Nichols is a game time decision this week. If he's banged up at all and plays, like he has been one of the best halfbacks in the CFL for the last number of years, but he's been a liability at times this year. Nobody has surrendered more touchdowns this season than Dietrich Nichols has, according to the PFF advanced data. I think there's going to be spots for Davis Alexander to exploit here, and I believe they will easily cover this 5.5 point spread.
The Hamilton Tiger Cats will visit the Calgary Stampeders on Saturday afternoon, where the Stamps are 6.5 point home favorites. The Ticats have yet to formally name a starter, though it appears Trey Ford will be under center, as Harrison Frost is still dealing with the back injury that kept him on the bench last week. Vernon Adams Jr. and Dietrich Mills both seem likely to play for Calgary, as head coach and general manager Dave Dickenson indicated both are trending positively after suffering head injuries prior to last week's bye. Can Steeltown pull off the upset, or will the Stampeders snap their 2-game losing skid?
For me, this pick really came down to the injury situation in Calgary, and with it looking like both VA and Diedrich Mills will play. Of course, that's not a certainty at the time of our recording, but it's trending in that direction. I feel pretty confident picking the Calgary Stampeders. I think this is a team that has the weaponry, that has the talent, that has the skill set to be a dark horse Grey Cup contender, but they faltered a little bit the past few games. And of course, got unlucky with that injury bug late in that contest when both of those players were knocked out. I think they'll be able to bounce back. I think a matchup with the Ticats is exactly what the doctor ordered. However, I do think that this Hamilton team is good enough that they will cover a 6.5 point spread. I think that's far too wide for this matchup as it stands right now. Trey Ford brings an element of chaos to the matchup, right? We've seen him play absolutely horrifically this year. We've seen him play absolutely brilliantly. He can go anywhere in between on the spectrum and bring the Ticats into contention. And this defense is still a very strong unit. I think they will make it difficult for the Stamps, but they won't ultimately prevail. I'll take the Stamps to win and Hamilton to cover.
I'm going to have my cake and eat it too here. If VA does not play, I'm taking the Tiger Cats to get the upset. But if VA does play, and it does look like he will, I'm all on the Stamps. And frankly, this is a huge must win game, right, for this team. They've lost 2 in a row against middling opponents. Calgary lost to Toronto in week 10, and then BC in week 11. And that most recent loss was, in fact, a home loss, a game they were favored to win by 5.5 points. So to me, this club is better than their record, and I think when you look at their roster so far this year, they've been less than the sum of their parts. There's been some questionable late game decision making, some questionable clock management, and I think that's held this team back. I think they're more talented than a 4-6 football team. And I think this game has huge playoff implications. And you might say, what are you talking about? This isn't even a divisional game. Well, let's not forget, if the Calgary Stampeders are going to make the playoffs, it may have to be as the 4 seed in the West Division with the crossover. And if you're going to beat somebody in the crossover, it's almost certainly going to be the Hamilton Tiger Cats. These are both 4-win teams. The Ticats are 4-7, Calgary 4-6. And so I think it's not only important for the Stampeders to get a win to get up to 5, which is where BC and Winnipeg are right now for kind of a share of third place in the West. It's also critical to think about where Hamilton is in the East, because if the Tiger Cats get hot, they could potentially slam the door on a potential crossover and have it so that only 3 teams in the West make the playoffs. So for me, this is a Stampeders team that went into Hamilton early this month and blew the doors off the Tabbies. They put up 44 points in a 24-point victory. And if you can win like that in Hamilton, certainly you can cover a less than a touchdown spread in Calgary. So to me, I'm taking the Stampeders. And I feel like this is like a sell or buy week for me. Like the Calgary Stampeders, if they come out and look really good, I think they've got a shot to potentially split that home and home Labor Day annual with the Edmonton Elks, or dare I say, even push them in both games, possibly get a sweep. If they lose this one in Hamilton, I'm sorry. There's no reason to believe that they're going to be competitive in the home and home against the Elks. Now, fortunately for Stampeders fans, the next 2 games on the docket after that are Ottawa, But still, if this team falls from 4-6 to 4-9, I don't see why anybody would believe that they could make a playoff push, even with a bit of a softer schedule down the stretch. So I'm on the Stamps. This is a must win.
The Toronto Argonauts will visit the Saskatchewan Roughriders on Saturday night, where the green and white are 4.5 point home favorites. The Boatmen have won 3 of their last 4 games and defeated the Riders at Mosaic Stadium back in June for what was technically considered an Argonauts home game. Toronto linebacker Cameron Judge hasn't practiced this week due to a hip injury, while Samuel Emilus will not play for Saskatchewan after being placed on the 6 game injured list with a leg injury. Can the Boatmen sweep their 2 trips to Mosaic Stadium, or can Saskatchewan overcome their injuries to snap its 2 game losing skid?
Yeah, awful development for the Riders with Samuel Emilus going to that 6 game injured list. Corey Mace told the media on Wednesday it's not expected to be a season ending injury, but putting him immediately on the 6 game tells me that this is going to be certainly a multi-week injury. So that's a tough blow for a Riders team, considering they just had him out for 3 games with a foot injury. Emilus has been one of the best players on the field this season when healthy. On the flip side, yes, the injury to Cameron Judge spooks me a little bit. Owen Goss, who's been a really nice find for the Argonauts, and that linebacking core has been out as well. But this Argonauts team is getting hot, and a big part of that has been the play of Sean Lemon, right? He was our defensive player of the week in week 12. He's got 6 sacks in just 4 games, one off the league lead at the age of 38. Just unbelievable. And one of the downsides when you're down Kean Schaefer-Baker, Samuel Emilus in that Riders receiving core is I think it slows down Trevor Harris's clock just a little bit. He's going to be a little bit slower getting that ball out to his receivers who just aren't as good, frankly, as the players who were starting originally in their place. Schaefer Baker and Emilus, 2 of the best receivers in the CFL. And when you're holding onto the ball just that split second later, we saw it in the tail end of that BC Lions game last week, JC. Trevor Harris is going to take some hits. And with the way Sean Lemon is teeing off on quarterbacks, that has me a little concerned for the home team here. Now, the Riders are expecting reportedly a crowd of over 30,000 people, which is awesome. I do have them winning this game, JC, but I'm going to hedge my bets here. I'm going to take the Argonauts to cover. It would not shock me if they won this game, and frankly, it shouldn't shock anybody. The Argonauts won, as you said, at Mosaic earlier this year. So I'm on the Riders to win, but I'm on the Argonauts to cover.
I made my reputation earlier this season when I got on a hot streak, kicked off by picking the Argos to upset the Riders at Mosaic Stadium. And I'm not doing it again. I'm exactly in alignment with you here, Hodge. I don't think the Argos are going to be able to get it done. I think they'll get it close. I think they'll cover this game. I don't like that this point spread is above a field goal. But the reality is, I think the Riders are the best team overall, or the better team overall, I should say. And while the injuries are concerning, I've always been a believer in the strength of that locker room, the quality of their depth, and Corey Mace's ability to get the most out of his roster no matter who is on the field. And I think they've slipped up a little bit in those last 2 games where they've lost, and I think they're disappointed in themselves. I think a message will be sent this week, and they will not repeat the same mistakes at home. I expect to see a crisper Riders team. I expect to see a more disciplined Riders team, and I expect to see one that can contend with the Argos. The big concern, perhaps, is that secondary in Saskatchewan that's been vulnerable to some deep shots, and we know that Chad Kelly loves to throw the deep ball, but some of the whispers coming out of practice in Regina seem to indicate no more Jackson Ford at safety. It might be Nelson the combo back there. We may see an American corner as well making their debut. I think that would give me a lot more confidence in that unit. And with some guys banged up on that Toronto offensive line that has not been very good at the tackle position to begin with, I also think that they can generate some pressure on Kelly and get him off his game. I believe the Riders have what it takes to get back in the win column.
The BC Lions will visit the Ottawa Redblacks on Sunday night, where the nation's capital is 5.5-point home underdogs. BC has won 4 straight games, thanks in large part to the strong play of their defense. On the flip side, the Red Blacks underwent even more change this week, firing Vice President of Football Operations Sean Burke and bringing in Jim Popp as a senior football advisor. The team has lost 16 consecutive games dating back to last year and is officially the 7th team in modern CFL history to start a season 0-10. Can they finally get their first win this week, or will the Lions add to their winning streak?
I'm all on the Lions this week, and frankly, I don't think this game could have come at a better time for BC because they're on a hot streak. They've won 4 in a row, but a lot of that has been due to the resurgence of their defense, as you noted. And I think their defense can have a very strong game against Ottawa. It's just their offense has lagged behind at times. Not that they've been bad, they've put up some numbers, but there have been a lot of mistakes, a lot of missed assignments, and a lot of meat left on the bone to the point where following their victory over Saskatchewan, Nathan Rourke was very frank with the media and said, "Look, I'm not where I want to be right now. I'm not playing at the level I expect, and I think I owe this organization better play." Well, if there was ever an opponent to get you right as an offense, it's the Ottawa Redblacks. I think this is a unit that is extremely vulnerable to big plays. I think it's a unit that you can hone your eyes in as a quarterback. I expect Rourke's going to have one of his better performances of the season. I think this offense is going to pop off and put up big numbers. And frankly, I think this 5.5-point spread is way, way, way too small for the chasm that currently exists between these two teams. I know it's a long road trip, but that does not scare me at all. I think BC prevails in a big way here, and the misery just continues in Ottawa.
This is the easiest pick of the week for me. And look, I feel awful for Red Blacks fans who have been sitting through and in many cases paying their hard-earned money to watch these losses in person. And just on a human level, I would love nothing more for the Ottawa Red Blacks to win a game this week. And just end this miserable streak, right? Just get it over and done with. Get your first win, and don't risk becoming the next Shreveport Pirates, a team to start the season 0-14, right? Like, this skid has to stop. That said, I would be lying if I said I thought it would be this week. I'm all on the BC Lions for the same reasons as you, JC. This is the easiest pick of the week for me. And when I read the comments that you reported from Nathan Rourke, I went, oh, geez, there's 8 CFL teams that are really probably disappointed to be reading this because Nathan Rourke has played well recently. He hasn't played at his very best. He hasn't played at an MOP level, but he's played well. And so the fact that he's sitting there stewing after a home victory going, ugh, man, I got to be better. I owe everybody else, much better. Like I'm going, oh, like if I'm an opposing defense, like, oh, can we please? No, I want complacency. I want laziness. I don't want motivation and retribution and humility. That's not what I want from Nathan Rourke. So I think that the Lions are going to tee off on the Red Blacks here. Again, I on a human level would love for the Red Blacks to win. I just don't think it's going to happen. And frankly, I don't think I'm going to prognosticate it at any point. I think I'm just going to continue picking against the Red Blacks. It's done me very well this year, and I will let them prove me wrong. And I hope they do. I hope to be proven wrong, but I don't think it's going to happen this week. I'm on the BC Lions, and like you, JC, I'm surprised this is only a 5.5-point spread. I would be very happy to take the Lions over a touchdown. I don't know about double digits, but I'd still think about it at -10, -11. So getting them at -5.5 is a dream for me. On that note, for JC Abbott, I'm John Hodge. We thank you as always for listening and watching our picks in the Canadian Football League. These were our selections for week 13, and enjoy the games. Don't worry, we'll be back, us plus Justin Dunk, on Monday for our full weekly analysis podcast. We'll see you then.